Hello everyone, welcome back to Meghan and Harry Tales. I'm Adrian, and if you thought the royal family couldn't get more dramatic, think again. Today's story is one that proves just how fragile the so-called future king really is. Prince Harry had a simple cup of tea with his father, King Charles, and suddenly Prince William is spiralling, insiders are panicking, and the palace mouthpieces are working overtime to smear Harry yet again. But here's what makes this story even more fascinating. We're seeing the same patterns we've witnessed for years, the same insecurities, the same desperate attempts to control a narrative that keeps slipping through their fingers. Let's break it down because once again the media circus has turned 1 hour of tea into a power struggle fit for Shakespeare. So here's what happened. Prince Harry, after nearly 19 months without seeing his father face to face, returned to the UK for a brief visit. He and King Charles sat down for tea just 1 hour together, and according to sources close to the meeting, it was a success. Civil, warm, even healing. Father and son catching up. Simple, right? Well, apparently not. Because now the gossip mill is working harder than ever, claiming Harry is scheming to edge out William, and that their meeting threatens the heir's so-called authority. Yes, you heard that correctly. A man had tea with his dad, and suddenly it's a constitutional crisis. What's particularly telling is the timeline here. Harry lands, sees his father, and within hours, the negative briefings begin. That's not coincidence, folks. That's coordination. Let's talk about patterns, because this isn't new. Every single time Harry does anything, and I mean anything that could be seen as positive, the palace machine kicks into overdrive. Remember when Harry won hearts at the Invictus Games? Suddenly there were stories about him being difficult. When he and Meghan's Netflix documentary broke records, more palace leaks about their demands. And now a private father-son tea becomes a threat to the monarchy itself. The desperation is palpable. Because here's what they're really afraid of, not that Harry will return, but that people will remember why they loved him in the first place, that natural charisma, that genuine connection with people, that ability to make the monarchy feel human and relevant. William's team knows this. They've always known this. That's why the character assassination never stops. Let's be clear here. This isn't about Harry undermining William. This is about William's insecurities being exposed for the world to see. If one chat between Harry and Charles is enough to rattle William's throne, then maybe he doesn't deserve the crown in the first place. William has always painted himself as the steady, strong heir. But time and time again, the second Harry enters the picture, William looks threatened, weak and jealous. And frankly, it's pathetic. Real leaders don't fear their own brother having a relationship with their father. Real leaders aren't this insecure. But here's what's even more revealing. The sources claiming William feels edged out are the same ones who've spent years telling us he's the perfect future king. Which is it? Is he strong and capable, or is he so fragile that his brother having tea with their dad sends him into a tailspin? The contradiction is glaring, and it tells us everything we need to know about who William really is behind that carefully crafted public image. And of course the media vultures jumped on this immediately. Headlines screaming about Harry plotting a part-time royal return, whispers about him moving back to the UK, and even the wild claim that Harry is somehow out to sabotage Charles and William's bond. Let's call this what it is: nonsense, manufactured drama to make Harry the villain. The palace leaks are dripping with paranoia, suggesting Harry is lurking around like some Machiavellian schemer, when in reality he had tea and maybe a slice of cake. That's it. As one insider hilariously said, whoever is behind these stories seems to have mistaken a slice of cake for the Treaty of Versailles. Exactly. But here's the genius of their strategy. They flood the media with so many conflicting stories that the truth gets buried. One day Harry's plotting his return, the next he's trying to destroy the family. The only constant, Harry is always the bad guy. It's psychological manipulation at its finest. Create confusion, maintain the villain narrative, and hope people forget to ask the obvious question. If Harry is so irrelevant, why are you so obsessed with him? Rob Shooter from Shooter Scoop revealed that Buckingham Palace has gone into overdrive to downplay any talk of reconciliation. And why? Because reconciliation doesn't fit the narrative they've been pushing for years, the idea that Harry is the outcast, Meghan is the manipulator, and William is the untouchable golden boy. But here's the truth. Charles does miss his son. Their relationship matters. Multiple sources have confirmed that Charles lights up when talking about Harry and his grandchildren. The king is getting older, he's dealing with health challenges, and family means more to him than palace politics. William doesn't want that because if Charles and Harry rebuild their bond, William loses the monopoly he's enjoyed over his father's ear. That's why the palace is spinning this as a power play, not because it actually is, but because it protects William's fragile ego and his position as the only son who matters. Think about it, they've spent years trying to erase Harry from the royal story, but one cup of tea threatens to undo all that work. That's how tenuous their control really is. Notice something important here. Harry isn't out here leaking nasty quotes, he isn't briefing the press, and he isn't slinging mud. That's all coming from William's side and the palace insiders. Harry went to see his father, period, and yet somehow he's being painted as the one sticking knives and playing games. It's ironic, isn't it? The one accused of stirring drama is the one actually living quietly in California, raising his kids and showing up for charity work. Meanwhile, the heir to the throne is reduced to anonymous tantrums through so-called aides. If you ask me, that says everything. And let's talk about Harry's restraint here. He could easily fire back. He could give interviews, write another book, reveal more family secrets, but he doesn't. He takes the high road while they drag him through the mud. That's the behaviour of someone who's moved on, who's built a new life, who doesn't need the palace games anymore. The palace knows this too. That's why they're so desperate to pull him back into the drama. Because without Harry as their villain, they'd have to face some uncomfortable truths about themselves. And just when you think the media couldn't get any more desperate, they're even dragging Archie into the mess. Reports popped up claiming that Harry and Meghan want to send Archie to Eton, yes, the same school William and Harry attended. Well, guess what? Harry's spokesperson shut that down immediately. False, fabricated, more palace fantasy to sell headlines. But here's what's really sinister about this particular lie. They're using a 5-year-old child as a prop in their media war. They're inventing stories about where little Archie might go to school just to create more drama, more division, more reasons to attack Harry and Meghan. It's almost laughable how quickly these lies spread, but they all serve the same purpose: to keep Harry in the villain role while shielding William from scrutiny. And notice how these stories always come with just enough detail to sound plausible, but never any actual sources or evidence. The desperation to find new angles, new ways to attack Harry and his family, shows just how empty their arsenal has become. When you're making up stories about a kindergartner's future school plans, you've officially jumped the shark. Here's the reality. This isn't about tea, cake, or even reconciliation. This is about power dynamics inside the monarchy. William is terrified that if Charles opens the door to Harry again, it exposes William's lack of influence and his inability to truly fill his brother's shoes in terms of public appeal. Because the truth is, people actually listen to Harry, people respect Harry. He walked away from the system and built his own life, and still his presence is powerful enough to shake the palace to its core. That's real influence, that's real power. William's power is inherited, hollow, dependent on titles and protocols. Harry's power is earned, authentic, based on genuine connection with people. And the establishment knows which one is more dangerous to their carefully constructed hierarchy. That's why the smear campaign never stops. They can't control Harry, so they demonize him. But here's the twist. The more they attack, the more obvious it becomes who the real problem is. And it isn't Harry. Every desperate leak, every manufactured crisis, every attempt to drag Harry back into their dysfunction just proves that he made the right choice in leaving, and deep down they know it too. So let's wrap this up. Prince Harry sits down with his father after nearly 2 years apart, and suddenly William feels edged out. Palace insiders are panicking, and the press is inventing fairy tales about knives and leverage. All because one man refuses to let go of his insecurity, and an institution refuses to admit it might have been wrong. Harry isn't the problem here. He's the son trying to reconnect, the husband raising his family, the man who walked away from a broken system and had the courage to build something better. If William can't handle that, then maybe he's not as strong as the crown he's chasing. The real question isn't whether Harry is plotting his return, It's whether the monarchy can survive without the one person who knew how to make it relevant to modern audiences. That's it for today's breakdown. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think William is threatened by Harry's simple presence? Or is this all palace spin to keep Harry as the villain? I'll be reading your takes. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe and hit that bell so you never miss the real story behind the royal headlines. Thanks for watching Meghan and Harry Tales. Until next time, I'm Adrian, reminding you the truth always cuts through the palace lies.